Good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world, and welcome to today's webcast, Information Chains, Disentangling Roadblocks to Digitalization in Logistics, presented by the Journal of Commerce, part of S&P Global. On behalf of the Journal of Commerce, I'd like to thank WNS for sponsoring today's program. I'm Alessandra Barrett, Journal of Commerce Associate Director of Special Projects, and I'll be your moderator for today's discussion. Joining us today are Mike Santomoff, Chief Digital Officer at Mode Global, and Jason Augustine, Executive Vice President and Business Unit Head of Shipping and Logistics at WNS. Before we begin our presentation and our discussion, I just have a few quick housekeeping notes. Everything you need to navigate the webcast can be found at the bottom of the console, accessed by widgets. The one I want to call your attention to, most importantly, is the option to submit questions. We have a robust audience today, so we won't get to everything live, but our speakers will respond to your questions, any unanswered, by email. So I encourage you to definitely submit questions and try to get the information that's going to really help your business. So, and again, that's just typing in the question, asking a question, and clicking submit. So let's kick this off. The topic we're going to be exploring today is the roadblocks our industry still faces, streamlining the flow of information to truly deliver on the promise of innovation that has been held out and discussed at length over the last 2-3 decades. Jason, will you give us a quick introduction of your background, WNS, and your thoughts on the role that digital technology is playing in the industry?
Absolutely. Good morning, Alessandra and Mike. Funnily, I'm sitting just a door away from Mike's office, but technology keeps us slightly apart. So I think that's a good segue into our topic today. I'm Jason Augustine. I head the shipping and logistics business unit at WNS. WNS is a global business process management company. What does that mean? We take over major parts of our clients' operations and transform them using digital tech and AI. And we partner with the companies like Mode in their transformation and digital journey, as they set aspirations to grow and expand their businesses. So we focus on different aspects of the shipping industry. My own background is in container shipping. I spent 15 years in global container shipping companies in the past before joining WNS and into this exciting role. This is a topic that's dear to my heart. The topic of digitization and innovation in shipping and logistics is not a new one. And as the discussion unfolds, I will share some data points on how this has evolved in the last 30 years and how a lot of strides and improvements have been made while a lot of changes were not successful, right? And what can we together, both the service provider side as well as the companies in the segment, do together to address some of the challenges? It's a very complex industry, and COVID taught every layperson basics of supply chain, as the shopping that they did online did not arrive as they expected, or there were shortages. It tells you that the industry has become a lot more global. 30 years ago, a laptop was assembled entirely by one company or one supplier. Now it is a series of sub-assemblies spread all over the world, requiring multiple trans-Pacific and transatlantic journeys, requiring reliable logistics companies like Mode to play a big part in how that's fulfilled. So I just want to kind of set the tone and context here. And I'm excited to have this discussion with Mike and share some of my thoughts and experiences.
Thanks, Jason. Mike, can you give us a little bit of a background?
Yeah, of course. And Jason and I share similar challenges and similar passion for where technology can take us from a digital perspective and the help that the industry needs. So really excited to have WNS as a partner in that journey, and then also to be here today. So thank you for having me this morning. I'm really looking forward to this incredible discussion. I'll start with Mode. Mode is probably one of the largest transportation companies you may have never heard of. In 21, we cleared about $3.5 billion in sales, and we can just continue to grow. We're the fifth largest over-the-road brokerage and the largest non-asset intermodal provider in the U.S. And when you think about what that means, I believe it uniquely positions us to provide value to both our customers and carrier in ways that many others cannot. We provide our services across our associated family of brands. Mode Global is a parent organization for Suntech TTS, Mode Transportation, and HA Avengers. And it's really about being better together. We think about that, and our acquisition strategy around those companies that I mentioned. We realize that putting our customers first is really that secret sauce that the industry needs. And allows us to be a stronger digital player across the industry. We're able to drive the right level of efficiencies, right level of automation, and the right level of partnership that these organizations need. You may not necessarily need just transportation services. You might need data. You might need just a shoulder to lean on to make sure you're driving the right efficiencies and margin adjustments for your company. And we want to be that value add partner. So again, I'm really excited to be part of this conversation today because the battle is real. We all need to pivot really quickly on how we think about our organizations, especially going into this period of economic turbulence. So again, looking forward to the conversation today, and we're ready to really drive some great learnings throughout.
So Mike, let me keep the focus on you for just a couple minutes, because your title, Chief Digital Officer, the very existence of it could indicate that the industry's finally recognized the importance of adopting digital solutions. Do you see that connection? Do you agree with that statement? What can you tell me about the origins of your role?
Well, I really hope so. When I think about, just the evolution of a chief digital officer in general across many different verticals. I didn't really dive into my background, but I started in pharmaceuticals. I then went into logistics, and then was in retail before coming to Mode about 7 months ago. And the evolution across all those different industries, was I need the IT guy, I need the IT guy, I need the person that's going to drive, my operational IT. And as you got later in those stages with those companies, part of my role is really intersecting business and technology together into digital initiatives that drive us forward. And that's in my mind truly what we're seeing here, as part of logistics, and part of where I think my role is incredibly important. I think about my first stint in logistics. It was you were almost dragging folks across the line to get rid of their T cards and everything else associated with how they're transacting. Now the conversations are coming to us. They're coming to us to see how we can drive those efficiencies, how we can lower their cost to serve, and how we can increase their margin. And when I also think about what that looks like from a digital roadmap perspective, we focus in a few key areas. First and foremost, how do we drive, real robust system consolidation integrations? And what I mean by that is a bit of simplification. I mentioned, old T cards that, I probably shouldn't have, but, I just was putting that out there. But we all have that level of complexity through multiple years of iteration of a technology strategy, not a digital strategy, a technology strategy. So having real conversations around that and driving simplification can benefit not only ourselves from an operational perspective, but our customers from a transactional perspective. And the integration component that I mentioned is all really about that being better together. The industry is sharing, and you're seeing that, and we're talking about it. Really leveraging third parties to help us, but us being that provider back to others from a data integration perspective, from a system functionality and integration perspective. Complementing their experiences really is part of it. It's really a part about how we get better together.
And the family of brands that the company operates, that structure that you operate within, does that bring any unique perspectives or challenges?
Perspectives, yes. Those three family of brands, they specialize in different areas. That's why as we thought about our acquisition strategy, we thought it was important to maintain those family of brands. Challenges, I'd like to say we're on the other side of a lot of those because of the roadmap strategy I talked about. We're not really just saying that how can we be better together with folks outside of our organization. We're really talking about how we can be better together internally and deploying a lot of that digital strategy internally first and vetting it and making sure there's the right approaches. And we're doing a lot of that with our foundational data strategy. You think about those buckets. It's what I was mentioning before. It's it's that consolidation integration. It's that data strategy and monetization. So how do we really use our data to drive behavioral analytics and compliance across our carriers, our partners? You go down the list, and then really drive to where we're partnering with WNS in an extremely good way from an automation perspective. You get into conversations that were so far-fetched before to get into how do we do self-healing around our transactions? How do we do self-healing around our systems? It's just very exciting.
Quite. Jason, can you speak to the relationship between WNS and Mode, just to provide some context for why I brought you both here together? How are the companies working together on, for example, automation?
Absolutely. We are very appreciative of the relationship with Mode. We began the journey with Mode with one of the companies that they acquired in 2015. And it has now quickly morphed into a much more strategic play. We are supporting them both on the operations processes as well as finance and accounting. And what COVID has done for Mode and WNS's relationship is created an inflection point where we've realized and unearthed together some of the real challenges that Mode as a global, growing, ambitious organization is facing. And I think they've made the right decision to find a partner that can work with them side by side in that journey. Some of the areas that we are working on, WNS is bringing to bear not only its global footprint in terms of operational delivery and the global talent pool that we have access to, but we're also bringing our investments in technology platforms, particularly our end-to-end freight automation system platform called Malcolm that digitizes pretty much different segments of the value chain. And we are right in the middle of creating a roadmap for the next 3 to 5 years, how we can deliver outcomes that Mode wants in terms of not only efficiencies and cost management, but more importantly, the end customer outcomes. So in fact, we're just excited here. I'm here in Dallas, not only for the webinar, but to get into a call with Mike and his team and management on actually detailing out that journey that I just mentioned. So it's a highly strategic and valuable partnership, and I'm excited to work with them.
Right. Now, it barely needs saying that while Mode was working on leveraging automation with you, we've been through a global pandemic. So, Jason, could you just speak about the impact of COVID on the digital system integration program and any larger impact?
Yeah, sure. Let me actually take a step back, Alessandra, to set a slightly broader context. I mentioned in my opening remarks that this conversation about digital is not a new topic for the industry. COVID definitely shone the light on it, and therefore it became a little more visible. But this has been, a topic for a long time. And let me also draw contrast with similar industries that are global, and that'll give us a glimpse into where this industry has some unique challenges. Everybody knows the nature of logistics and shipping is global in nature. They say a shipment of cargo by sea involves 30 plus documents, 250 copies, 27 to 40 entities that you have to interact with for every shipment, right? So you can imagine it is a great opportunity for digitization and deployment of technology. but what has the industry been able to do? If you take similarly international industries like banking or the airline business, which is also globally distributed, they created plumbing in the industry 30, 40 years ago. So banking introduced SWIFT, right, that everybody knows and talks about. The airlines invested in the GDS network, right, so that there's interoperability between companies and common standards and protocols. What is unique about the global shipping and logistics industry, I would argue, being even more complex than these other industries that I mentioned, there is no global plumbing. There is no interoperability with systems. There are no common standards. The word electronic bill of lading was coined in the early 1990s. It is still a distant dream, in real practical application. So I just wanted to set the context of, the industry, that we operate in. And then came COVID, right, which kind of suddenly threw additional challenges, physical, interface became a challenge. And then suddenly there was this rush to, find digital solutions. So I'm still an optimist, although I've been on the sidelines watching some of these initiatives not deliver the entire promise. But really what companies have done, and I think Mode is doing the same, not waiting for the industry to offer them a solution, right? It's about taking care of their business and customers first, right? And any number of things, we could do basically digitization of the entire paper trail where there is manual interface. And those are easier entry points into your value stream. I think, that's an area that we are actively working on. The other problem that most companies have, they also have a large footprint of legacy systems, which you cannot just jettison overnight, because tens and sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars have been invested in a series of legacy operating systems. And particularly in a company like Mode that is growing through acquisition, you inherit a bunch of legacy systems from the companies that they're acquiring. How do you then overlay a digital strategy on top of all this network of systems and operating environments? And I think that's where WNS is uniquely positioned with our suite of hyper-automation solutions, where we can build an orchestration layer on top of the legacy operating system, still enabling Mike and his organization to deliver what they need to deliver to their customers, while they kind of change the engine room in the back to modernize and optimize and improve. So that's really the way we look at it. And I will bring in our comments as we elaborate. While digital sounds very sexy and we want to do everything at the press of a button, WNS believes that the human element is equally important. This is not an industry that you can flip a switch and everything is going to work automatically, particularly in an expanding, complex regulatory environment, right? You have the tariffs and you have the sanctions and you have all kinds of restrictions that you have to go through, which is basically creating more regulations and complexity to how you operate globally, right? And then you have all the sustainability initiatives, which again requires a lot of documentation and tracking of your entire value chain. How do you do that? And you can have a 21st century technology, but you cannot deliver that with 20th century people, right? So the upgrading of the human element and partnership and change management is as important as the technology itself. And I'd love to share some of the thoughts as we unfold this topic a little more.
I definitely wanted to chime in. Again, I feel like I'm continually talking about, WNS, and maybe I should be your salesperson at some point, but I really believe in the value of the partnership that we've created here. And one of the things you mentioned was, as we go through acquisitions, you inherit some of these systems, and that's a really important thing that we have to talk about. As many companies do. As Mode is growing, and Mode is not going to stop acquiring. Mode is doing great things for the right reasons, and what I mean by that is the secret sauce that these companies have that many folks are acquiring. It's not because they're trying to get scale. Sometimes it is, but most time it's about how do we differentiate in the market, and how do we preserve those experiences. Why we do the system consolidation, why we get scale, those types of things like you mentioned. But it doesn't have to be consolidation play. How do we make sure we modernize those experiences and get the right timing and the right approaches for that? Our partnership has definitely allowed us to do that in the past, and as we lean forward into the next few years at Mode, I'm looking forward to more of that from our partnership.
No, thank you for the shout out, Mike. Appreciate that, and we value that.
We started this conversation with, and we framed it by looking at how the industry has maybe not yet been able to deliver on the innovation that's been promised. Just could we spend a second or two on whether you think those expectations are outsized or whether they are realistic and we just need to do things right to get there?
I can jump in there just to elaborate on the point where I mentioned the industry has failed to come together to create industry standards. And having been an observer and a practitioner in this industry for 30 years, and I'm dating myself now, some of the initiatives that were launched 25, 30 years ago, we had companies like GT Nexus, Intra, that did not deliver the full promise of what they wanted to do. And they had the blueprint from the airline business to create pretty much the GDS kind of environment so that it becomes easier for companies to operate. And I'm also discouraged by the recent announcement, just I think a couple of weeks ago, with Maersk and IBM suspending the TradeLens blockchain initiative. So to me, it seems like the industry is still not ready to collaborate outside of their boundaries to create common platforms and solutions. So the optimization seems to be focused, and all the transformation effort seems to be focused on how every organization can create outcomes for themselves and therefore competitive advantage. So I think while the big transformation and some of the industry initiatives are perhaps slightly behind, there's plenty to be done within the organizations. And I think the challenges that the industry faces, depending on which segment you're operating in, there's a whole basket of solutions that you can deploy, whether it is robotics process automation, whether it is moving your entire operating environment to the cloud, whether it is using big data and analytics to become sharper in how you look at your customer revenue opportunity base. It is a whole plethora of those items that companies can work together and really improve the metrics that the customers are demanding of companies like Mode, and how do they differentiate themselves from the other logistics companies who they compete with. The marketplaces and the blockchain technology, those I think are going to evolve over time, but meanwhile, there's plenty to be done in-house, and it's keeping the teams that are the joint teams at Mode and WNS busy 24/7. And I think it's also important to take advantage of the global talent pool, right? Whether it is in Asia, in Eastern Europe, in South Africa, in Latin America, Europe, and North America as well. So it's really how we can bring the technology, process optimization, and people to getting the right solutions delivered.
Yeah, it keeps coming back to the same three basic things: people, process, technology. How do we drive it all together? I mean, it definitely is not a I don't want to repeat much of what you just said, but you hit the nail right on the head. The industry is not adopting as fast as we'd like, for sure, and that partnership component that I keep mentioning is definitely the way you get there. I mean, it's about how do we take that data from all of us, and how do we drive what these experiences should be to really mature the industry together in that partnership format. I think that really will get us there cohesively. We're all working on the same challenges. I think you said it really well when you said everybody's doing the things that they need to do for their customers, internally at the company level. It just doesn't have to be that way. That word partnership is so powerful, and I believe in it. It's working with the things that we're doing today from a mode perspective. Looking forward to us doing it with competitors tomorrow.
Mike, what are your thoughts on the impact of freight volumes? Obviously, with COVID, we saw an unprecedented increase. We're seeing the pendulum swing a bit, analysts predicting a freight recession. What are your thoughts? How's this going to impact your plans too?
So, you think about, COVID and how we've had to react. Overall, it was that you couldn't really interact with your customers the way they were traditionally interacting with us. Touchless was a challenge. How do we provide these experiences without human intervention? And I think economic turbulence that we're up against is just the next level of an evolution that we're ready for. I was at a publicly traded retailer prior to coming to Mode, like I mentioned earlier, and we invested heavily, on the onset of COVID. We pivoted to those touchless, non-in-person experiences. Partnered with different logistics firms around, virtual shopping sessions, and what that really meant to the delivery of goods. Now, as we go into this time of economic turbulence, it will change that context of technology investments. You're going to see a lot of things increase, and you'll see a lot of things decrease from a year-on-year investment perspective. I see it driving incredible experiences around visibility and predictability, quite frankly, because that's where we're gonna need to drive those efficiencies and create those margin opportunities. If you think about the journey that Mode is on, some of you may have seen our demonstration at Freight Waves of our new visibility and predictability product, and we were really focused on how we can ingest our customers' data and lay it over top of our data to identify head haul and back haul opportunities, really drive those synergies that are going to allow them to be better, for them to really execute on some of those sustainability goals from a carbon savings perspective, and then really just be that better partner. I think you're going to see a huge increase of initiatives like that are going to allow us all to be better. And it's competition, right? When we drive an experience that drives incredible value in the market, others are going to try to outplay us. We're going to outplay them. It's going to continue to drive this incredible growth from a technology perspective, from my perspective, in the industry.
It's a great motivator for evolution. Jason, what are your thoughts?
I echo some of the thoughts that Mike mentioned. I think rate management, capacity and allocation management has become extremely important as we are seeing these very drastic changes in volume and price dynamics in the industry. Right, we went through supply shortages and demand shortages and historic price increases in the last 2 years, and now declining volume, zero COVID policy in China. So how do companies forecast and we are seeing that as we look at our portfolio of customers, and we serve customers in all modes of transportation, express, road and trucking, ocean, rail. So we are seeing the fluctuations and challenges that our customers are facing. And one of the services we provide is the whole forecasting of volumes based on all these different trends. It is also what places a company like WNS in a very unique place, because we protect our customers from the variability of business volumes. A lot of our contracts are priced based on transaction volumes. So in many ways, it is really up to WNS to manage that variability. And people don't realize it, how important that can be. As CFOs of organizations can worry about running their companies and managing their finances, and the operational variability and the technology and transformation agenda can be supported by a partner like WNS. But these are unique times, right? This kind of swings perhaps almost has a whiplash effect. But we operate in so many different segments and different industries, and it offers a pretty good hedge to companies that want to manage that kind of variability.
One of the things that I didn't mention that I think you're uniquely positioned to help us solve, and we're doing it today, but I want us to do it better tomorrow, is because our customers are screaming for it, and rightfully so, is compliance initiatives. And I think about like carrier compliance and what that really means to our industry, and how it helps us avoid all the terrible fees that we all incur when things are not going really well, and how we hold folks accountable. Our customers are screaming for this, and that's a really difficult challenge. I mean, the data bubbles up a lot of it. Think about what behavioral analytics does and how that can really complement, the visibility we need around carrier compliance as that example. But it's really going to be those outlier use cases that really drive us to be better than the rest. And I think, as you think about the way you work with organizations and you really lay over top of so many experiences, you can really help us and many others with that journey.
Absolutely. In fact, Mike, we can definitely discuss that when we have our ongoing workshops. The compliance desk is a request that we are hearing across the board. In a global environment, one of the things that we had to deal with early 2021 when Brexit happened, and all of a sudden it threw up a whole bunch of new requirements for logistics companies in terms of how they dealt with shipments between the UK and Europe and the rest of Europe. Right, and we had to very quickly, provide solutions. And one of the major global express companies, we provided the platform and the solution for them to be able to deal with that. But just even beyond that, we deal with companies that have to deal with compliances around fraud detection and anti-bribery, restricted party screening. And then, of course, everything from SOX and other financial, compliance regulations that they have to meet. So it's an area that we are investing in, and it's finding a lot of purchase among our customer base.
I think there's also a play for margin. Should we be looking at certain business opportunities differently? You think about that compliance piece. It doesn't have to be about the non-sexy things. It can be about the things that are really going to drive your organization forward. So looking forward to that conversation with you as well.
Absolutely.
Well, I definitely want to leave time for audience questions. So I'm just going to go, one last one from me. And that is, let's just take out the crystal balls. What technology or tools do you have your eye on? Do you think is not being talked about enough? Are you hearing from your customers about needs that need to be addressed? What do you predict is going to have the most impact in the evolution of the industry?
Now, I can take a shot at that, Alessandra. I'm sure I'm not the only one in the last few weeks enamored by the sudden interest in this new AI chatbot called ChatGPT.
Sure.
It kind of, brings a chuckle. It's entertaining. I actually use that to write poems about my coworkers. I told the chatbot to write poems about my coworkers, and everybody laughed about it. But you cannot help but imagine the possibilities of something like that. That within a matter of seconds, you give it a complex question, and right now it's all in the realm of people playing with it, and it's entertaining, and it's it kind of elicits a laugh and and a little bit of a fun time. But how can we look at that possible when you ask the question, look into the crystal ball, how can artificial intelligence be utilized in this complex environment? And this industry has so many unique complexities. If you're an asset owning company, your assets are lying in one location and the cargo demand is in another. How can you optimize that? All the growth in ecommerce and last mile deliveries, route optimization is a very big requirement. I think that's where AI can play a big role. The whole management of a very scarce resource, which is truck drivers, and allocation, and where to deploy them, and the entire rostering of those, the drivers. That's a huge area as well. And a whole bunch of customer interaction where customers are reaching out to companies for various solutions, rate inquiries, service questions, claims administration, different areas where technology can provide the initial solutions, making it much more self-serve. But of course, I'll caution leaving a room for the final human element, which is really what the secret sauce of every individual company is going to be. Somebody said, how can AI, tech, and digital in the automobile industry meet at the dealership in the end, right? So while you still want to automate routine tasks, serve information both to the customer and to the management for informed decision-making very quickly, and then you overlay the final empathy and human element to your digital foundation, I think is the recipe for success. And there are so many different areas that you can pick from to make that difference.
It's funny, I could run down the hallway and hug you right now, because that's a lot of what my answer was going to be as well. I mean, it's also funny you brought up Chat GPT. I wrote a bot that tells jokes to my family and intensively gets a little more towards their personality to pick on them a little bit, just to make them laugh. So yeah, it's a really powerful platform. But the last point you just described, I think, is absolutely the most important part. Is how do we keep the human side into it? And I feel passionately that natural language processing and how we look at that, and how we incorporate that into those transactions or into that strategy around AI and ML is really a big part of that secret sauce. We've partnered with on my retail part of my experience. I partnered with some great organizations around how we can enhance the virtual shopping experience, because the virtual shopping experience we started with was it's scheduled time, someone from the store will video chat with you, show you the item, allow you to ask your questions, and then we get it to you. The company I was with did rent to own goods, and you imagine how the complexities around different conditions and things of that nature, because there was new and used products. So that was a great value add. Where we started to leave that journey, or lead into that journey, next phase was how do we really respond to our customers quicker, and how do we respond to them accurately with inventory? How do we help them understand what's available to them if the condition of the product arrives in ways that it shouldn't, and how do we do it in a very natural way, and then drive all of the delivery components on the other side of it. So it's really exciting thing, between AI, ML, natural language processing. I don't know. I really could come down there and hug you for that one. But one of the things I know it's high on my hit list, and probably many of the folks on this call as well, is how do we use those same technologies partnered with behavioral analytics to really stop being attacked, or really be better together from a cyber intelligence perspective. It's a foundational layer in our strategy. We're doing some really good things today, but it can't be just us. It's got to be all of us to stop the industry from being under such duress from cyber threats. So I'm hell bent on fixing that one, and I want to do it with you and many others.
Thank you, Bob.
So I would add, Alessandra, I would just add one more thing that I failed to mention. I think, looking at the future, it's very clear that IoT is also going to play a big role in this industry. Even traditional industries like the ocean carrier business, I believe Hapag-Lloyd is the first company that has now put a tracking device on every container. And I think you will see a lot more of that.
You definitely will. We're having conversations today with rail providers and many others that are really enhancing the way they look at that from an IoT perspective, and want to bring us into the conversation because they want to leverage the data we have to make those experiences even better, which in turn goes directly into the last point that I made around cyber intelligence. It's really what's the real transaction look like, really what's happening across all these different companies, so we can really understand what's real, what's not. How do we defend against certain things? There's a variety of different use cases there. So now you're getting me really excited.
Well, it's our audience's turn now. So I did see some questions come in earlier. I'll start with those. Everyone else, you still have time. Please just type that question into the Ask a Question area, click Submit. Again, if we don't have time to answer them today, the speakers will be happy to respond by email. So let's see. How is the industry dealing with in-house talent shortages in their pursuit of digital strategies?
I can take that one. From a talent perspective, COVID has helped us with that one too. From a mode perspective, we're going where the talent is, and we're driving that flexibility in their day-to-day lives that allows us to get best of breed talent. You're seeing so many different things where, I'm an old man, I think, but when I think about me growing up, it's like how can I find an opportunity that's going to really put food on the table, and I'm going to drive the most amount of money coming in the door, or, maybe some vacation time. Those were like the big items. What's my bonus look like, stuff like that. The world is really different today, and sustainability is important as people think about where they want to work. They want to know where your core values are, and they want to know that you're taking care of the environment, and so all of it together is really complicated. So being able to extend your reach through, the way we all work today, a lot of us are virtual. Mode is back in the office, but we allow flexibility for folks to work in different states, virtually, and we've got the technology around our organization to do so. But part of our talent strategy is also really focusing on those other things that are really important to candidates, like how are you treating your employees? How are you contributing to the environment? How are you partnering with universities to make sure that you're leaning into different scholarships, the different programs? How can they contribute? Has been a really big one here lately. Can they be a part of some of those programs as they join our organization? And so that's a bit of how we're working through some of the talent shortages and enticing folks to work in Mode.
What about on the WNS side, Jason?
Yeah, I think it's WNS is a very large people organization, and I have to first mention that just 2 days ago, Forbes announced, included WNS in the world's best employers list, which is a very coveted it's an independently we don't officially participate in that process. Forbes actually polls employees anonymously on their own, and they come up with that list completely, without interacting with the management of the company. So we are extremely proud of that. In fact, a day before yesterday, Times Square and the entire NASDAQ building was lit up with the company names, and WNS was prominently one of them. So, so I just wanted to mention that as a key priority for a company like WNS, because we are really the talent provider to all of our customers on a global basis. While we are not immune to some of the challenges that the world went through last year, particularly COVID and the challenges of working from home and everything that individuals and human beings had to deal with. But we are, I would say, very advanced practitioners of managing the global talent, leadership development, learning management, career progression, because today we are about almost 60,000 employees worldwide. I just came from a strategy meet. As we looked at the next 3 years, we will have 100,000 employees in the next 3 years, right? So one of the value propositions that we have to companies that are trying to grow and expand and transform and digitize is how they can utilize WNS's vast people network and strategically use that to their advantage, which their next door neighbor may not have discovered yet, right? So if you want to do all the things that companies are aspiring to do, where do you find the skilled engineers and the analysts and the statisticians and the data scientists and logistics experts in vast numbers that are required to achieve your objectives? And for that, you need to be diversified in your global footprint, because global footprint gives you the skill sets and the cost economics to be able to deliver the outcomes that you're looking for. So that's how we look at it. We have 61 centers in 15 different countries. And depending on what each of our customers wants, we are able to bring that to bear.
What's been pretty impressive about, the numbers inside of your organization, and then also, our experiences, has been the quality that WNS is able to maintain of those individuals that you're aligning to help your customers. So hats off to you guys and your talent strategy.
Yeah, we're very proud of that, Mike. And it's a two-way street. You get the best of the teams the way our customers interact and invest in them, because we don't go into a dark room and produce solutions, right? We co-create with every one of our customers, and then Mode is a shining example of that collaboration.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's what you just said there. I think is incredibly important. That co-create. I mean, I'm a big believer in just partnerships overall. I probably said partnership 100 times on this call today, but one of the things that I say to every employee, every partner that walks in the door is, I don't care what color's on your badge. We're all in this together. It's all about us co-creating together and getting to what drives value for our organization. And yeah, you guys have definitely done that for us.
Jason, I have a question directed to you. Are customs brokers part of the conversation around digitalization, and what role do you see them playing in the next 3 to 5 years?
I'm sorry, I didn't. Can you repeat that again?
Sure. Are customs brokers included in the conversation around digitalization, and what role will they play globally in the next 3 to 5 years?
I think the role of the customs broker is ever more important. Particularly as in an environment where security threats, and then I briefly mentioned the complexity of global supply chains, where everything is not sourced and assembled and produced in one location, right? So to assemble a laptop or an automobile, you're probably sourcing different products and components from dozens of countries and finally gets assembled maybe in China and then gets shipped to North America or Europe. It's obvious the role of the customs broker in and the knowledge that they bring in, because every one of these components, sometimes the plastic sheathing on a wire that connects the audio system in the automobile has restrictions and has to be classified and categorized in a different way. So it's a hugely complex area of work. I do believe technology has tremendously helped index, classify, and make the work a lot easier. But most countries and locations still require licensed customs brokers and agents. And I don't think that's a profession that's at risk of going away anytime in the future. And we rely on that expertise a lot in many of our engagements.
Mike, how do you, or any advice on aligning your digital strategy to business objectives?
I love this question. I love this question. I talked about, my role being at the intersection of, business and technology, and, really thinking about how you're partnering with all parts of the organization is how you do that from my perspective. Here at Mode, we have individual digital roadmaps, within each one of the different operational business units to understand where they want us to be better partners and help us drive different experiences, and roll that into the enterprise. So we are very complementary across our organization on how we're providing different experiences. You don't have these one-offs everywhere. And the piece that I think really drives the alignment is bringing everyone into that conversation. So it's not that we're just focused with those quarters of folks on their individual roadmap for, I'll name a product line like the truckload product line. We're really driving a conversation so we can see we're managing the customer end to end across, multimodal or anything else. How we're dealing with some of our back office functions with our different agents. The examples are far and wide, but it's really about bringing everyone to the table and challenging them, quite frankly. But I think about where I am in my career and where many other technologists are. We're not in the business of just saying yes and just getting stuff done. We're in the business of being a great business partner and driving business experiences. I came to Mode to make a difference from a business perspective, not to just make sure your email comes into your inbox every day.
This is really for both of you, so let's start with Jason. It's a question around safeguarding data and info security. How are you ensuring that while serving your customers?
It's a very good question, Alessandra. I think it's something that keeps most organizations, not only the CIOs and CTOs, but CEOs awake at night, right? Given the challenges. So you can imagine, as a global custodian of over 400 customers' data and systems and information, we will do all the physical things that are necessary for network segregation and firewalls and every imaginable physical attributes of that. I think that's one part of it, which is necessary. So in terms of ensuring that physically you have deterrence and protections in place from an InfoSec point of view. But I think more importantly, you need to create, that is what WNS is doing, is to create a security-aware culture where there is constant training and awareness given to the employee base, how phishing attacks, for example, come in, how not to respond to unknown emails and texts. So I think creating that and training and awareness is very important. We have a 24/7 security operations center that monitors all the vulnerabilities and entry points into our network globally, which is very, very strong. We, of course, comply with every known international standard out there, both for InfoSec as well as data privacy, whether it is a PCI DSS level standards, ISO 27001, the SSAE 18 and the ISAE 3402 audits that are done. And of course, the whole privacy framework that all of us have to comply with, whether it is the EU GDPR, whether it's UK's DPA, the HIPAA regulations in the US, and so on and so forth. So this has become table stakes today. This is something that WNS is extremely strong in. Our chief risk officer reports directly into the risk committee in the board. That is how much importance we give to this topic and subject. And we are happy to showcase that to our customers and anyone who's interested.
Mike, anything to add? Yeah, thanks.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, a lot of what you just said about the table stakes, is the same here at Mode. But I mentioned that cyber intelligence layer. That's a lot of our focus today from a behavioral perspective, so we can, protect ourselves and our customers, but also to use the words, maturity and awareness and things how can we drive maturity to the folks that work with us, so that way they understand how they can be better at that. That collaboration piece is really an important part of that strategy, and the conversation overall needs to be different. You mentioned the board and how your risk committee or your risk officer is in those board conversations. I have a deep security background, and one of the things that I was doing in retail, and I'm driving the same conversation here, is how do you talk about cybersecurity differently, cybersecurity and technology differently at the board level. FedEx is a great example where they pioneered the first cyber and technology committee that sits on the board. I mean, we have comp committees, we have a risk committee. Front and center should be your cyber and technology committee as well. And if you ever want to be put to sleep or at least see what's going on, I would highly suggest someone going out and downloading that charter from FedEx. They've done a great job with it, and others are coming on board as well. The organization I belong to is a Digital Directors Network, and it's about maturing that for different industries and changing that conversation. So we're aligned on that as well. So it does trickle down into protecting our customers.
How do you measure business value generated from your digital initiatives?
I can keep this one real simple. The metrics. So up front, when we are scoping out what we should be doing, it's business outcomes first. So what are we really truly trying to achieve? Is there a market for it, and are we being effective? So you can lean in, testing, experimentation. Essentially, you're able to lean in that, test and experiment, make sure we're focused on the right things, and then are we getting the right outcomes or metrics as a part of that? So really having that conversation up front about the metrics and those outcomes, absolutely critical to driving business value. Sorry, I kept it short, but I know we only got 60 seconds left.
Right. So I will say officially that I don't think we have time to get into any others. If you have any closing statements, again, I promise that I will pass these questions on for email response.
I mean, I can start a quick closing statement. It's, thank you to both of you. And just really appreciate being part of this conversation today. There's a long road ahead of us to, evolve our industry from a digital perspective. And, I think we really have to partner together to do it. So this is one of those steps, awareness.
Thank you, Mike. My closing comment is, how large is, if you're a company moving freight, how large is your transformation digital technology team? You need a partner like WNS. Give us a call.
Great. Well, thank you both. And thank you, audience, for joining us today live with everything else pulling at your time at the end of the year. The webcast itself will be available on demand within 24 to 48 hours. You'll receive an email reminder about that. For information related to today's webcast, including where you can leave us your evaluation, please visit the resource links on the webcast console before you go. Once again, we've been chatting about information chains, disentangling roadblocks to digitization in logistics. The webcast was presented by the Journal of Commerce, which is part of S&P Global. And on behalf of the Journal of Commerce, I'd like to thank WNS for sponsoring today's program. Many thanks to Jason and Mike for an outstanding discussion. I'm Alessandra Barrett. Have a great day.
Thank you.